A mother who found out her son was being sexually abused when he was 4 years old has written to me and asked me to share it to help us understand the realities of what can happen. Hold on tight, this one gets emotional. Okay, so a mother who's been following my social media for some time now has written to me after finding out that her son was being sexually abused when he was 4 years old. The reason why she wants or has requested for me to share this with you is because she wants to help us realize the dangers that can happen, the realities that can happen, but also she is hoping that her account that she has written in incredible detail, and it's really, really heartfelt, will help any other parents that are listening that are going through something similar after finding out that one of their children has been sexually abused. So my plan with this is to read through the account, provide some of my comments, highlight some of the areas that I feel we should go through, and we'll take it from there. I just want to give a warning, this is extremely emotional. This very strong and powerful mother has written this in a really heartfelt way. She's really put her heart on the page for us to learn and understand and raise our awareness. So it gets deep, but nothing that we can't handle together, right? So let's get into this. On August the 2nd, 2020, my life as I knew it changed forever. On that date, my 11-year-old son revealed he had been sexually abused for approximately 2 years when he was only 4 years old. Before this date, on August the 1st, 2020, I was a reasonably happy, trusting, motivated and hardworking person. And by August the 5th of 2020, I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep, I couldn't work, and my life was in absolute chaos. I was devastated by the images that played out in my mind. Images that I could barely tolerate for 1 minute, let alone a lifetime. The images of my little boy's tiny body being sodomized repeatedly by someone more than 3 times his size consumed my thoughts. When I was alone, I cried constantly. The things that once brought me joy didn't matter to me anymore. Something that I don't believe we have enough coverage on when it comes to this subject area are the parents of the children that have been abused. The pain and discomfort, the tearing apart of their heart when they find out is unimaginable. I know we have great support for the victims of these crimes, of these abusive situations, and rightly so. But my heart always goes out to the parents who find out that some time ago their child had also been abused. And the pain I feel for those parents, I'm talking about from personal experience when I told my parents about what had happened to me. So I understand this. At night, I paced outside my son's room while he slept, afraid to leave him alone in case his abuser found out he had told and came to kill him. In 28 years, I had never locked our front door, but now I lock it all the time. I had panic attacks that I had never experienced before. I called hotlines at all hours of the night, which I had never done before. I messaged friends in the middle of the night in a panic, which I had never done before. I took anxiety medication, which I had never done before. I developed a dependency on sleeping pills because it was like the only way I could just get a couple of hours sleep a night. I felt like a complete failure as a mother, How could I not know what was happening to my little boy? How could I miss the signs? Please, to any parents that are out there that can honestly and truthfully say that they had no idea that their child was being sexually abused, please, this is not your fault. This is the fault of the person that has carried out the abuse on your child. I understand that this is going to be something that you will never ever recover from, but please, again I say it, if you can honestly and truthfully say to yourself you had no idea and you were trying to be the best parent that you could be, then this is not your fault. Where was my mother's intuition? I felt like it was all my fault. I didn't protect my little boy. I willingly handed my pride and joy over to someone who manipulated his innocence and abused his tiny little body. How could I not know? I hated myself every second of the day for not knowing what was happening. I hated him for what he did to my son. I had never wanted to hurt another person in my life, but I found myself fantasizing about what I would do to him if given the chance. I became somebody I didn't recognize. I became obsessed. I became depressed. The guilt and regret overwhelmed me. I would cry myself to sleep every night and wish that I wouldn't wake up the next morning. I didn't want to face another day. The only thing that kept me here was knowing that my son needed me. And that is a great point. Even though to find out that your child is being sexually abused would be the most painful thing you ever felt. Right now, what you need to do is be the best mother, the best father that you can be for that child, because now is when they need you, if ever before. They don't blame you. They need you. Now they need your love and support. So now you've got to step up. I was told by one of the hotline workers that the details of what happened to my son were very important to the criminal case. She told me to write down every little detail and to keep a record of what he told me. As hard as it was, I listened to every horrifying detail. I became my 11-year-old son's confidant, and he slowly revealed a mother's second worst nightmare. Bedtime stories changed from what used to be light-hearted tales of our day to heinous sexual abuse he suffered at such a young age. I would lie next to him in the dark and listen with silent tears streaming down my face. Every word broke my heart even more. Every detail destroyed who I thought I was as a mother even more. When my son told me he was sodomized and then made to lick his own feces off his abuser's penis, I wanted to die. When my son told me he was scolded by his abuser if his teeth got in the way while he was made to perform oral sex, I wanted to die. When my son told me he was sodomized while watching one of his favourite childhood movies, E.T., I wanted to die. Let's continue. How could I have not known? How could I have tucked him in bed at night after he had just been sodomized by someone more than 3 times his size and not know? What kind of mother was I? When he cried out at night because his bum hurt, how come I didn't suspect anything other than constipation? Why didn't I see that it coincided, with his visits with his abuser? When he had that rash around his mouth for months, why didn't I suspect something? You were never to know. How were you to ever know? All of those signs are now in hindsight. In hindsight now we can link all the signs that were there. But at the time, it's not something that you think about. It's not something that you think about at the time. And it's so easy for us to look back and be like, why didn't we notice that? Why didn't we notice that? That was a sign I should have noticed. I didn't ask the right questions. Was I not paying attention? All of those things. It's all hindsight. The guilt and regret overwhelm me to this day, and probably always will. It doesn't matter how many professionals tell me it wasn't my fault, I will always believe that it was. He was my baby and I should have protected him. Before August the 2nd, 2020, my life revolved around my son, my husband, taking care of the animals, working the farm and future plans. For the most part, we were happy and hopeful for the future. After August 2nd, 2020, my life revolved around police officers, police detectives, psychologists, hotlines, fear, anxiety, regret, and guilt. I could barely function for the first 3 months after we found out. My own parents turned against me. They said that what I was telling them couldn't be true and insisted to friends, relatives, and neighbours that I had made it all up. Some friends and relatives believed them. A family friend who only a year before had been singing my praises angrily told me that I was sick and needed to get help before you hurt someone. As if finding out this happened to your son wasn't enough. This is the time when friends and family should be supporting, not doubting. Who would make this up? When it comes to the sexual abuse of children, who makes that up? We don't make that up. It's a serious, serious situation. And the people who are meant to be with you in these tragic times, in these horrific, unimaginable times, are so horrified themselves that they turn away from you. To anyone that's watching this that has also been through something where they've disclosed abuse that happened to them or even to their children, ever said any story that they wanted to speak out about and they were not believed or people turned their back on them as a result, I am so sorry that that happened to you. I felt like a witch hunt I felt like a witch in a witch hunt trying to prove my innocence. To be accused of being so morally corrupt as to make something like this up and force my son to lie about it destroyed me even more. I felt alone and isolated and couldn't believe what my life had become. My parents' behaviour escalated to the point of needing police involvement and eventually required us to spend over $20,000 to replace shared farm equipment. This is all a direct result and consequence to the abuser's decision to sexually abuse my son. My little boy idolised his abuser. He told me that he was his best friend. He told me that he loved him. My son looked up to his abuser and thought that he was the coolest kid. He wanted to be like his older friend. My son believed the lies that his abuser told him in order to manipulate him into allowing the sexual abuse to happen. He was only 4 years old. He was so young and innocent and wanted to please his best friend. I remember the first time I left him at his abuser's house without his dad or I there. I remember picking him up afterwards and he was so quiet. He looked almost shell-shocked. Now I know why. At the time I told myself he was just tired. It had been a big day. It certainly had, but I had no idea of what he had just suffered through, physically and emotionally. What I wouldn't do to have a time machine to stop that from ever happening, it haunts me every single day. Where this mother talks about her son idolising the person that's abusing him, talks about him being his best friend and how he was cool and idolized him, and that situation, I believe, is more common than we like to think it is. Where the manipulation and the grooming process has worked absolutely accurately to achieve the result that the abuser has his victim wrapped round his little finger and can control him like a puppet to do all the sexual things that he wishes so that he can release that desire. I think we always think that sexual abuse of a child is violent. It's not always like that. I left him to play with his older friend that day, and many others, because I completely trusted the abuser's parents. They were mature, well-educated professionals who I believed were responsible and trustworthy. They were long-time close friends of my husband, and I thought our son was safe with them. I was encouraged to let the boys play together freely, even though I was nervous about the age difference. I was made fun of for being overprotective. We were told we needed to socialise our little boy because he was starting school soon. I was told not to worry, he'd be fine. I thought his abuser was a good kid. I was told he was immature and that I was told he was immature and that is why he got along so well with younger children. I was told my son was safe with them. I was not told that his abuser had exposed his penis to the neighbour's little boy. I was not told that his abuser's biological family had a history of child sexual abuse. So now the story unfolds. This older boy, which we don't have an age for him, but if the son that this mother is speaking about is 4 years old at this time, I'm not thinking he's, for example, in his 20s, right? So he's just an older boy. He's had behaviour before. Why was this behaviour not raised by any of his own family? Of course it wasn't raised. This subject is so stigmatised, carries so much. We have put so much shame that we can't speak openly if a young child or a young boy or a young man even shows harmful sexual behaviour that needs to be addressed and analysed instantly. Nobody wants to talk about that. Could this have been prevented if this abuser's family had spoken out and got help for him about why he was revealing himself in this way? Possibly it could have been prevented. And now you can really feel the anger that this mother will be feeling after not being told about this. The things I only found out years later after my son's abuse was revealed. These things would have been red flags for us. This information would have been a warning to my husband and we never would have allowed his abuser to be alone and unsupervised with our son. I feel we were betrayed by the abuser, but I feel we were betrayed even more by the abuser's parents. They chose to keep important information from my husband and in doing so, they took away our rights as parents and to make informed decisions concerning our son's safety. Our son was conceived out of love and wanted from the minute we knew he was coming. I carried that little boy in my belly for 9 months and went to every doctor's appointment, no matter how inconvenient. I carried him in a backpack on my back everywhere where I went, no matter how tired I was, because he refused to go in the stroller. My husband and I followed all the rules. We took no unnecessary risks with our only child. We worried and fretted over every little thing as he was the most precious thing we had. We did everything in our power to keep him safe. We raised him ourselves, no daycare, no babysitters. We thought his abuser's parents knew better than us. They had more experience and I trusted them completely. I considered the abuser's mother a good friend, and the impact of her betrayal is more difficult and hard to comprehend. She had so many opportunities to tell us about her son's history. All areas of my life have been impacted by the abuser's decision to use my 4-year-old son for his sexual gratification, including one area that I'm not so comfortable talking about, my own sex life with my husband. I am no longer able to have an intimate relationship with my husband. The pain, the discomfort, and the tearing apart of lives does not only live with the person that the abuse happened to. The pain and discomfort is spreading from that person. The analogy I like to use is like when a stone drops in water, the stone is the victim, but the ripples, the disturbance, the pain moves outwards and affects everyone around that person. It triggers images of my son being sodomized and being able to be made to perform oral sex. The harder I try not to think about it, the harder it is not to think about it. This is just another consequence that my husband and I have to live with because of our son's abuser's decision. My life has been impacted in so many different ways. One of the worst being my memories of my son. When I used to look at the photos of my son, I would feel joy, but now my heart breaks. Instead of remembering that birthday or outing, I think of what he must have been going through, physically and emotionally. I zoom in on the pictures and look deep into his eyes, trying to see if there was some sign. Was he trying to tell me somehow? Could I see it in his eyes now that I know? Did I miss something? I cherish those memories, and now they are changed forever. Nothing was as it seemed. He was not safe. He was not happy. He was being sexually abused. Since my son was conceived, I have worried about him. The usual kind. Little things that seemed so big at the time. I have new worries now. The statistics of victims of child sexual abuse are frightening to say the least. Drug addiction, promiscuity, suicide and many more. My son told me not long before he revealed his abuse that he was questioning his sexuality. He told me that he knew he wasn't gay but wondered whether he might be bisexual. It's a lifetime of hurt. And now this very young boy will have a journey of various complications, confusions. He will have a lifetime of reflecting on what happened, what could have been done to prevent it, how he feels about it now, looking back at it, like it's a life sentence. Abuse is a life sentence for the person that it happens to and the family and the friends around that person. I speak from personal experience. I asked him after he revealed his abuse if he thought it was because of what his abuser had done to him, and he said without hesitation, yes. My son told me that one day, not long before he revealed the abuse to us, that he thought of jumping in front of a truck when he was at the end of our driveway. Before I worried about the little things, and now I worry about my young son might end his life before it's even begun. As I write this, I can hear my husband sobbing in the other room as he writes his own victim impact statement. Watching my husband struggle through his own pain leaves me feeling helpless. I know there are no words to console him because I know there are no words to console me. I can only imagine what it must be like as the father. Not one moment must pass thinking about what happened. feeling the pain of your son, feeling the pain of wondering what you did wrong, what you missed, and failing to do your number one duty, which was to protect your children. Please, it's not a failure on your part. The failure is with the systems and the societies not getting to these people who have these thoughts in their head before they commit the crime. The failure is there. The fault is with the person that carried out the crime, carried out the act. Please. Please. As parents, we are broken. We are changed forever. When we held our newborn son 13 years ago, we never imagined this could happen to him. The innocence is gone. The abuser's actions altered our past, our present, and our future. His actions have negatively impacted my relationship with some of my family and friends, my health, both physical and mental, my trust, my faith in mankind, and my memories. Most importantly, the abuser's actions took away the innocence of a kind-hearted and trusting little boy. A little boy whose love and friendship were pure and genuine. A little boy who only wanted to please his best friend. The abuser used and abused my son's little body and betrayed his trust. He took away my son's innocence. His dad and I will spend the rest of our lives trying to right this wrong. But there are some things that time cannot erase. Thank you for listening. So I don't know how you feel now that I have read through that impact statement from this mother. This is probably the 5th or 6th time that I've read through it, and it gives me the same feelings every time. Whether you have been through sexual abuse in your childhood or not, whether you are a parent yourself who has found out at some point that your child was being sexually abused or not, everyone that hears this story can feel the pain of this mother and this father and this young boy, which she mentions is 13 years old at the time of this writing. My heart goes out to that boy. Let me tell you, this doesn't need to... Let me say something different here. It's going to be a challenging road for you. Full of obstacles. Sometimes things are going to feel intense. Sometimes things are going to be smooth. Sometimes things are going to be rough. But truly, it's nothing that you can't handle. You made it through that. And now that has given you a suit of armour to continue with all the challenges it's going to bring continuously through your life. That's never going to stop. But every time you overcome one of those challenges, maybe it's a physical challenge or it's a challenge in your head with the memories of what happened, you're going to get stronger. It's the truth. To any parents out there that are watching this that have had a similar experience in their lives, my plan is to focus a section of my work on supporting you. I want to create encouraging, insightful, engaging content for parents to use when they need it, to give them some relief from the pain that must be constantly in their head. I can't even imagine it. Sexual abuse is ripping lives apart left, right, and centre. And if we don't start talking about it openly and challenging the narrative and ripping apart that stigma, this is just going to continue generation after generation. That's why this mission that we have on my pages, Jeremy Indica, and on the movement that I'm running, Something to Say, is such a powerful one for us all to get involved in, and for us to drive it and to grow it and to get it onto these major media outlets, to get it on the big platforms, get it on everybody's table, because it's everybody's concern. Thank you.